hold for Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. Have appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Here. Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Rogers. Alderman Rosick.
Here.
Alderman Zappel.
Here. I'd like to remind everyone that we are still having a hybrid meeting, so it's really important to speak into your microphone, please. And we'll be monitoring everything live virtually as well as our audience here today. We're going to move on to committee business. Consider and recommend proposed creation of section 17-1110 of the City of Oconomowoc ordinance regarding food trucks and mobile food shops. Mr. Duffy. Excuse me, Mr. Gallo.
There you go.
It's been a long day. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. We have 30 minutes to discuss this creation of an ordinance this evening. So my end goal tonight is to hopefully, fingers crossed, have you recommend that we send this on to the Plan Commission for potential action. I'll give you a little bit of background. We met a little over a month ago to discuss a draft ordinance, and since that time, I took the comments that the committee at the time reflected. There was about 7 or 8 of them, and I updated the ordinance, and I provided you all with a bold strike-through version with the updates. I also, in that ordinance, proposed 4 questions to the council members to just give some consideration to these 4 questions, and we'll go through those 4 questions as well. So that's really the first order of business, is to kind of go through the updates of the draft. Then next, per the request of the council, we did send the ordinance out to over 300 businesses. We did this with the support of the Chamber of Commerce and the DOBA, the Downtown Oconomowoc Business Association. We asked for their feedback of this draft ordinance. We said, please provide your comments back to the city. I received 8 comments, and I believe they were all positive, except for one, the Summit Credit Union. They were in support of food trucks in general, but they did say we don't really want a food court next to our building. And I got back to them. I did explain that was just an example. These food courts, there's no specific location. So they understood that. But for the most part, the comments received from the public were very favorable. Finally, we sent the draft ordinance to certain city staff, the department heads, for comments. I received about 20 comments, and I think we can go through those as well. A lot of them, if you follow the thread here, a lot of them are intertwined, and a lot of the comments are kind of the same. Some of your comments initially, some of staff's comments. So we'll go through those, and I think we can go through your comments, the citizens' comments, and staff's all within a relatively short period of time. So if you want, I included in your packet the draft ordinance. It says updated November 11th. And really on the first page, there was only one change, and that came out of the committee meeting. That was to specifically identify which in item or section C, prohibited locations, where are these prohibited? And I was asked to specifically put the districts in there. So that's all the change was these food trucks would be prohibited in residential districts. It's online. Yep. Oh, you didn't get it back. Oh, I'm sorry. It's yeah, it's under Committee of the Whole.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You didn't receive packets.
Committee of the Whole.
Oh, I thought you did.
Got it. Well, I didn't. Pretty good.
So we'll work on that.
Special. figure that out. Thank you, Mayor.
And remember, there was a comment raised about allowing trucks in a residential district, and here I'm saying they're prohibited, but these are trucks that go and park, not the ice cream trucks or other things that may drive through a residential district. Those aren't really regulated. This is for a vehicle that parks on a residential property, and we're saying they're not allowed. Okay, so the question that I had on page 1 is, if we are listing specifically all the residential districts, do we want to list where they would be allowed? And that's in the commercial districts, the business park, the industrial and institutional districts. And I could certainly do that. So we can either talk about that now, or I can just keep moving on.
No, I don't think that's
Okay.
One of the, at least in my head, we have prohibited location, outline what locations are prohibited and the rest are open.
Okay.
That's a good question about the churches and hospitals. I don't know. If the church wants one.
Yeah, I think they should have the option if they really want to.
Yeah, I mean, at least for now.
I know I've received inquiries from a church right over here, St. Paul's. They've asked to sell things from their church parking lot. So it's something when a downtown event is occurring, and you know, I don't know. That's a gray area. They're not part of the event. So sometimes I just let them do it because it says, well, it's only going to be for a few minutes or something.
Because this was specifically about food, and you're saying they're trying to sell stuff, and so.
You know, I think I discouraged the sale of it, and then they said, well, we'll just end up giving it away or something. It was Festival of the Arts weekend or Moonlit Movies night or something. And then sometimes it's just to say that to get attention that we're here, they might give stuff away. It's a little different than the food sales. Yeah, Lou?
So what if I'm having a birthday party or celebration at the house and I want to have food truck there?
But you're not selling food, and well, you know, these are for ones that are, it talks in the beginning in the first permit required one, it says 4 days or more. I think food trucks in the city less than 4 days are approved under a special event are exempt. You know, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. I don't think we're going to have too many requests for that. I don't think you'd be required to have a permit for that.
Summer that food truck is that all under requirement for location or permitting.
It looks like in the ordinance, it does mention that food delivery services of private caterers serving private businesses and residents are exempt.
Okay, there you go.
And that's what I wanted to ask, is just what would be different, you know, how is that delineated? Is that not something we need to worry too much about? You know, could a food truck that's going to a private residence be considered a private caterer for that specific circumstance? It wouldn't be an issue.
All right, that'll be exempt.
Okay.
One other thing to consider are, you know, delivery trucks that go around the community and sell ice cream and things. I think, but I don't think that we're addressing them here. We may or may not want to address them here. That's just that's another thing.
Can I just ask one more question too about the specific, I mean, how are we seeing food trucks in residential areas right now? That's something we're dealing with, that we've had to address, that we've had problems with? Why do we even feel a need, I guess, to outline it right now or define it if we're not necessarily, you know, having problems with it? Are we kind of just getting too much into the weeds?
Because when you create an ordinance, I would like everything tied up so we understand that that someone can't in a residential area go out and purchase a food truck and start opening for business in a residential area. residential, there's more than just single family homes. There's large scale condominium buildings that we don't want someone to park a truck there on Wisconsin Avenue, for example, and open it up. So we don't.
I just don't see why they would do that now. If they're not doing that now, why would they do that, in the future, right?
It's just creating the policy for what is allowed and what is not allowed. Okay, page 2 was just some simple changes. Under paragraph 5, it talks about liability insurance. We bumped that from $100,000 to $1 million.
That was a good change. That's the same as what Cedarburg has. I think what you gave me a draft version of Cedarburg does, what you do there.
Yep. The initial application fee was asked to change, decrease it from $500 to $300. So we changed that. Yes.
I've had a lot of discussions with folks about this since we started talking about this. And I'm kind of going the other way now with the fee. I think we should increase the fee. I think a temporary fee should be 300 and if the permanent fee be 500. When you think about that cost amortized over an entire year, at $500, it's only 41 bucks a month, which I think is a small price to pay to have access to the entire city essentially. And all the city services that come along with that, fire, police, everything else. We know where a lot of these places are going to be located, which is on vacant lots or unused parking lots. So those places are already paying lower taxes because they're unimproved properties. So I think it's a way for us to try to get some of our money back. On your time, looking at the application and the fee, and also when you've got to go and inspect these places, I don't think 500, in fact, I think it could go higher, but I think we should maybe wait a year and see how 500 affects them, my suggestion. And then if it's not affecting them and we still have, 100 food trucks, we raise the price.
Okay, we can.
And that would be my question though, is how you anticipate that impact people that want to, have food trucks here? Do you think that's going to be a that will dissuade them, that will discourage them from wanting to come here by having that fee higher? Or you think that it's not going to be like, oh, it's a good deal still, and, still fine?
I think that's in line with other communities. I think people are finding they're very profitable. And I think the fee is very nominal. I don't think it's a big distraction. It won't.
Is there a fee now? Do we have a fee now?
Yes, it's $75. One-time fee.
This is a significant change. It's kind of based on the research that Jason had done in other communities and Matt had done.
This fee only applies to food trucks that are in place for more than 4 days. Right? So if I want to set up at AutoZone for a day, I'm not going through this process. I'm not paying that fee. I'm there for a day and move on. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, AutoZone has a opening or 50th anniversary celebration. They bring in Gabriel's for a day. I don't think it's going to apply to them.
Well, so with that example, AutoZone has just smoking on a regular basis. It's not on a daily basis, but it's on a regular basis.
That's different. They do have a permit, and that is, you can't go there one day and then come back the next week and say that's another 1 day. It's a time period. So it's I should probably outline that a little bit better.
Like 4 days in a given month, right?
Yeah, because the first thing I thought of was, okay, so they're going to go to AutoZone. Tomorrow they're going to go to Rollabirds, and then the next day after that they'll come over to Parker's Place. All I'm saying. Right. There should be a time of which they're going to be in the city for the sole purpose, and then say, well, you've been here 5 days, 4 days, whatever the case is.
Definition would be good. I think the chances somebody's going to bounce around that much, they have people that come back to their location.
Right.
Here over a long period of time, but the fact is they could still.
And they have to get the property owner's permission. They just can't show up at Parker's Place and start selling. They need, and it's kind of a hassle to, track down the owner and get permission. And the owner usually charges them a fee to establish there as well. So it's complicated to find a spot to do this. So they don't want to bounce around too much. Okay. Moving on to permit issuance, the process now we're into, we changed the temporary use from 6 months to 3 months. And then under permanent use, I'll change that greater than 3 months, because right now it's 6 months, so there was a gap in there. So we'll change it so I can approve something basically over the summer, but if they want to be there more permanent than that, over a longer duration, that would have to go to the, I have it to the Plan Commission for their site plan review and approval. Okay, the next page. Under special events and community events, we talked about, I was prohibiting them to be 1,000 feet from a special event. Those are sacred events that, it takes time to get into those and it costs them money. We don't want someone to kind of pull up right next to it and get approval. But you guys took the 1,000-foot requirement out, challenging to measure that. And so we just removed it and said, I cannot approve them if they're part of a special event or community event. That is with the Parks and Recreation Department.
One question. Back up just a little bit with item 3. Something I'm considering I wrote in as a potential add here is if the site is designed for 3 or more food trucks, and then add in potentially, or if 3 or more food trucks are already using the site, the Planning Commission shall review the master plan. I mean, we knew, right? We know what we're talking about, and if you have 3, 4, 5 food trucks there, I don't think that they should be grandfathered in. They should have to comply with the terms of setting up the ordinance and have a master plan for the site. So that, we can't have one site not following the rules because they've been there for a year and other people doing whatever they want.
That is question 4. The last question on the whole ordinance talks about the ones that are grandfathered in. So we'll get to that, but I will add that in right in that spot. Or 3 or more currently exist.
I can show you the language.
Yep, I got that. All right, thank you.
I don't know if we want to put out there maybe a cap in regards to how many food trucks, 10 in the community.
That's the third question. Does the city cap the overall number of food trucks in the city? Do we want to create something that talks about no more than, I had 10 vendors as an example in the entire city? That's another policy question for this body to talk about.
How many do you think you have now?
I think I showed it on a slide last time. Was it 6? We may have lost one since then. The coffee truck, I think, has left Kmart, but we may have had 5 now.
Just so we don't lose track of where we're at everyone's list. Are we currently on the Dawson City defined food truck report? We're kind of going point by point, and then we kind of jump into that. And then
I think we should go back and just.
We're on food court right now, and I have changed that to say 3 or more food trucks or current existing food trucks. 3 or more current existing. So I'll take care of that. We talked about special events. We removed the 1,000-foot barrier requirement, and then location requirements could not locate within 200 feet of an existing restaurant, and that was removed by this body. So I struck that.
It would be interesting to know if you had any feedback about that.
There was no feedback on that.
Would the committee, is it okay if we recognize Sarah Hinman just to give us some feedback from the Downtown Business Organization and Downtown District of McCall? So, Sarah, could you shed us some light on what your members and what input that you've received? And thank you
Sure.
for engaging in this
Yeah,
meeting,
thanks. So I received back, and taking along with what you guys sent out, I received back probably about 25 to 30 responses on my end of what our business district may or may not want and some of their questions. We did ask them what their concerns were, if they felt it was competitive with the food trucks, and what they felt about the location of them. So many things to talk about, but overwhelmingly, the businesses seem to want some sort of recognition of what it costs to do business as a brick and mortar and have it be fair to, or somewhat as comparable fair. We understand that they are mobile. We understand that they don't have a seating room or area, but some sort of recognition that there's a large cost of business to doing what we do on a regular basis, especially in the special events area. So when you guys talk about special events, I just want to shed a little bit of light that we actually, our businesses pay to even participate in Fall Fest. So our booth cost of Fall Fest for a business downtown is $150. Somebody coming from outside, depending on how much space they need, is $250. So those are vendors selling food and other things in a short amount of time. So thinking that a food truck would spend $500 for a year doesn't seem like that's very much whatsoever when you talk about cost of doing business.
Did you get any feedback? Were there any numbers that they shared with your members?
Numbers of
What do you think
would be fair. They did not say exact numbers. They want recognition of, I think, more than anything. Their concerns are the extra added trash, restrooms. I think you guys are starting to address some of these things. The other thing that I think would be nice for the food trucks during the events is that they build a relationship with the downtown businesses. This is their time to maybe engage and pay the fee of that specific event that they're in, or some sort of a fee. If they want to stay present, they don't need to be kicked out or picked up and moved, but to recognize that they're going to have an overabundance of business that specific day. Maybe there's a relationship that we work on with them as well. I mean, they can be part of the downtown business district in the same membership as everybody else. And then I think their other big question is who's going to enforce and manage some of these things? Who's going to make sure that they are abiding by the trash, and the restrooms seem to be a big thing. So there's the big concerns were the fairness, the recognition of what the businesses brick and mortar do pay, and who's going to enforce that.
Do you have any questions for the council members, or things that you'd like
I just think that when they're popped up there, and is it going to be something that the look of it seems to be brought up over and over again. The fact that they can pull up an extra trailer, or what appears that they can do, we don't see the back end of how they're asking for permission. We have to go through so many steps to get the signage cleared, and they can have whatever, it appears to us that they can have whatever they want for signage as well. So again, if it's a smaller scale that they have to go through because they're not a brick and mortar, I think that's understandable, but the fairness somehow has to be relatable.
Does anybody have questions for Sarah? For example,
Has there been instances in the past, during Fall Fest or the German market, where some food carts are participating in the adult?
They have not done that, but in all fairness, we haven't gone to ask them either. So I think now that I'm in the director role, it's going to be my job to make sure that we encompass everybody and make it clear. I would ask that the city would be behind us and saying, yeah, that's probably the better thing to do, is to pay this additional fee because we put a lot of work, marketing time into that, and they're going to be a direct benefit. And if we're asking our businesses to go out there and pay for a booth spot, I feel like that there should be some type of an exchange there.
Eventually it could come in, empty space, whether it's at Scramblers or someone else.
Yeah, and I think it would be an underestimation of everybody to think that food trucks and mobile anything isn't going to grow, especially as we add more things in our city and all of our other districts. And we're just going to get tighter and bigger. It's going to be an opportunity. I mean, we're growing and we're excited to be that destination, and people are going to catch on to that, and you guys are going to be pushed in all those directions over and over and over again. So I think putting many things in place ahead of it is going to be important on your side to think about these things, because people are going to push the limits as we engage and have the ball field and Olympia and all that.
Alderman Kolinsky.
Yes. It's not necessarily a question, it's more a comment. I love food trucks. We go and get.
Yeah.
Most of the time, move the walker, get in my car and go pick it up, call it. And if we had to go downtown, or if we had to go over to Kmart, we go.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the investment that our building owners and our business owners make downtown to make it that destination. And to have a mobile food truck be able to take advantage of a empty lot or someplace on the street, come into a house or an outlet and set up shop and take advantage of all of the marketing effort and branding that the city business owners do without contributing.
Right.
Is not a,
Right.
not something that I think is a direction we want to take as we get back into a normal environment where those events come again. So I prefer not to see food trucks in our downtown area. Gateway areas as you're coming in, create that draw so they're not competing with brick and mortar, so they enhance another special destination experience. It's kind of what I would support. And again, this isn't, the just smoking that goes over to the auto zone for there. This is 3 months, 6 months, permanently taking a spot within our community with 2 different levels here. And to have that competition unequitably placed, I think is more harmful than beneficial to those areas.
And I agree with a lot of that. I do think that Oconomowoc as a whole, your downtown and your community, if they really were completely upset about the food trucks, you'd have a line out the door. We've shown up several times with a line out the door. People aren't happy, right? So I think that it's about a little bit more of the recognition of fairness and the cost of doing business and how that can be economically divided and work for the city and work for our downtown organizations.
So are we talking about free food trucks basically right now? I mean, because that's what I'm trying to kind of get my hands around. What are we talking about in terms of the food trucks that are impacting the downtown that we're specifically having issues with, that complaints are being lodged?
I think from what I hear from the businesses, it's the current food trucks that are there are not entirely an issue, but they don't want it to grow into a park, or they don't want it to grow bigger. So I think that we're teetering on a little bit of people that are like concerned. I've had a lot of comments about, hey, it's been a rough year. It's hard to allow all these food trucks to come in now. Like we're trying to rebuild. So there's a little bit of a timing perspective on that. And I think it's just about like, hey, if they're going to set up shop and they're going to be here, let's make sure that it's not too many. Let's make sure that it's not going to grow in a large capacity and get out of hand, and that there's recognition of fairness of what we're, of what.
I think that, I understand that. I don't know how much more it can grow downtown right now as it is. I don't know where else we could be setting up food trucks, I guess, other than that empty lot. And that's what I kind of get concerned about. I mean, that is somebody's private property. They're not breaking any laws right now. Aren't they entitled to be able to have that freedom to set up food trucks there if they want? And I totally, I sympathize with the downtown businesses. I mean, they're a backbone of the community. But I also look at the comments that we got from multiple residents who love the food trucks, that it's important to them that they have them present. And so that's why, I get worried about us trying to kick them out of the downtown. And I understand you're not saying that. You want to see equity and fairness, and I get that as well. So we just need to be careful, I think, about trying to move them out of downtown completely, telling people what they can or can't do on their property if they're doing it within the bounds of the law. So
Mr. Geller, what I'd like to do is kind of shift this over to the chairperson of Protection and Welfare. I'd like to have Alderman Rozak just kind of lead. He and you have been working hard on this. And Matt, if you could kind of take the lead to get us a direction from what we've discussed so far. I want to be sensitive to the time, yet it's really your baby. So if you could take the lead, that would be great.
I did want to respond though to Alderman Shellpepper's comments. I think it would be very good for the aldermen to hear this. They are coming. They are coming. I get phone calls. There is more space in the downtown for these to locate. There's a lot of vacant space. I'll give you an example. Lapham, Wisconsin. How about there's a vacant spot?
What's there? Yeah, what kind of?
It's vacant.
Yeah.
Across from Advanced Auto.
Okay.
I've been asked about that. What about where the old gas station was and, you know, by the Taco Bell area or something? Yeah. I've been asked about that spot. So I just want you to, we're not talking about 3 trucks. Last time I reported, I had 2 phone calls that week alone. So
But
this,
in the complaints, we're talking about 3 trucks.
I don't think anyone's complaining about it. I'm trying to get out ahead of it. That's all I'm trying to do. We don't have a good ordinance right now to control food trucks.
Let's go back to Alderman Rozak, if you want to kind of lead forward. And
It sounds like what you want us to do is maybe go back and hash out some more. I think there's a few really quick items that we should just get consensus on that are still kind of up in the air. One was restrooms. We want restrooms associated with every food truck or with groups of food trucks. My personal belief is that porta potties everywhere look terrible. I understand from Sarah and the downtown business group that people will come in and use bathrooms from the food truck, but I can't imagine that's a lot of people. Maybe it is, maybe it's not.
So being inside the Avenue Square, we see several, including their employees and their staff, and then several people coming through. Now, we also see that from around like the girls at Root see that from those things. Maybe there's some compensation to help with the cleaning of those bathrooms on a regular basis that comes from some of those fees offset. But there is quite a bit of extra added traffic, I think, by having them, especially on nice weather days. And that's okay. None of these things are negatives. I think overall it's just making sure that it doesn't get out of hand. And but the bathrooms are, yes, an issue.
The next big item I would think would be, do we want to cap them? We want to cap the number in the city at 10 and 15, start with and see where it goes.
Yes, I think we cap it at 10, suggestion, we can always do that.
I do have a bit of a concern in reference to page 6, looking at C, which is music. Okay, I see here where it says food truck, mobile food shops shall not make any loud or reasonable noise. I have a problem with that language, and the reason it being is because what one individual considers loud and reasonable, not one. Example of that was just the other night at my place. I got a call from a member, and they told me like the music was getting played too loud. So I went over, and as I approached it, I could hear it. Now, when I went in and I spoke to the teenagers that were there, that was reasonable to them, but to the average individual my age, that was way too loud. Well, I don't know. I think we have a noise ordinance.
Yeah, the next line of that though does talk about a black and white measurement, 70 decibels, and we do have sound meters, so I can go out and regulate that. So if someone feels it's unreasonable, they can make a complaint. I can go out and verify it, or the police if it's after hours, and we can verify it with a sound meter that I have right in my office. Mm-hmm. I don't know off the top of my head. You can make sure that that matches for all the other restaurants. Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
think that's part of our ordinance. Stan, do you know?
Question again.
70 decibels are sound ordinance, is that consistent with the city?
It's to residential neighborhood, it's 70.
We have differentiating standards depending on which zoning district you're in, I believe. We last looked at that with the ballpark.
70 is the residential limit, I think, but
The ordinance is the ordinance. It doesn't matter if they're above it. They're above it. You can cite them.
the last big question I see in here that we should address is whether we want to grandfather in certain areas. I'm opposed to grandfathering in. I think anybody that comes in, whether they've been here for 5 years or 1 day, they should follow all the rules. I think everyone's shaking their head.
I'm fine with that. I'm still stuck on the 10 or 15. I mean, what does everyone, I only heard a couple of answers on 10, but that, general, I kind of more lean towards 15, but if others are thinking 10, I'm fine with it.
Well, the only thing that I can think of is if you're increasing the price for purpose of initiation. And I think if we add the other things to the ordinance, I think it's gonna kind of naturally keep the numbers down. I don't believe that we need to actually put a specific number on it, because what if Jerry's Barbecue decides to come in for 15, and then we find out that the next day we lose 3, we call Jerry's Barbecue to come. I think that the actual monetary fees associated with what we're trying to do will actually affect a lot of these places.
Alderman Rogers?
I think I just have a couple of questions. I think the fees are still too cheap. I think for temporary it should be 500. I think for yearly it should be 1,000. I think that we should figure out what it's going to cost to have them utilize restrooms and things that other private business owners pay for. I believe that Sarah brought a good point up that if you want to be part of something, you should pay the same fee that they have to pay to put a freaking table out in our Wisconsin Avenue corridor. I don't care if you're open or not. Yes, I know you're there, but it still takes away from the brick and mortar small business owner. And I don't know that they're asking for a lot. I believe they're asking for fairness, and I don't disagree. And I also believe that charging maybe what would be more than average communities, I would hope brings a better product. So if we're only going to allow 10, and oh, by the way, if they call 911, fire still shows up, police still shows up, just like my shop or your house or your office. So I don't know why this is a big deal, but I don't know that we can price them out of the game. If they don't like it, I'm sorry, I don't care. If there's that many phone calls, there is somebody that's going to show up that's going to be better than the next person that's willing to take the risk and be there. So I think we're being a little soft here.
I wouldn't disagree. We have signage in here. If I'm a small business owner, I'm going to set up a restaurant, $5 million in my restaurant. The sign, wouldn't that go through architecture? If I'm a food truck, I just put on a sign, A-frame. If I'm a food truck and I have a $10 table and a $5 chair, that's now right next to the sidewalk. That's going to represent our community in a gateway, and from a fair and equitable standpoint, we have bodies in place and process in place to ensure some continuity. Architecture is part of that. Our business is going to go through that. This doesn't allow it. We have the common area services that they're not accommodating for currently where our brick and mortar. I don't know if it's right for us as a city to say, you can set up here, but we have to be a member of DOBA in order to do that.
I would never ask that.
We can't do that, right? But to be fair and equitable, we can't
I'll sell it to them. No worries. I gotcha.
But if you're gonna be open on an event day and you're within a certain, distance from that, you should pay.
It doesn't matter.
Right, we shouldn't do that as a city to those food trucks. That's dynamic, that's not our place. But by definition, they're gonna be there, they're gonna take advantage of that. Chaz's point, we want to be aware and cognitive of what we're doing that impacts somebody's private property. But at the same time, setting this up is setting up the use of that private property to do something outside of the parking lot or vacant lot that it currently is. So we have to accommodate for the cost, impact to our community and our visitor. All of that is what we're talking about. We're not limiting outside of our scope. We're I think, really playing within our scope.
If I can make a suggestion, Mayor, I think it sounds like we've got a little bit more work to do, Jason. And I'll maybe in the next week sit down with Jason, run through all these comments I've written down in this as we've discussed what those limitations are. Then we'll present a few of the options at the end on 10 or 15 or no limit. 500, 750, I'm okay going higher. And we'll leave those options in there and we just can circle them or decide an option when we're ready to present it.
This has really been a great discussion. I was thinking of, in my head, there's a couple ways we can go. I can work with, obviously, Alderman Rozak about this, and we could make a recommendation to send that to the Plan Commission right now, and then it'll end up eventually back to the council, or we could make some changes and then bring this back to the committee of the whole again, and then go to Plan Commission and then back to council. It seems like it may be to expedite it. Again, we don't have a clean ordinance right now. To move this as fast as possible would be to make the direction of staff to work with Alderman Rozak and forward that onto the Plan Commission.
Alderman Mulder had his hand up. I just want to make sure they're ready.
No, I'm fine. If we're coming back around, I just would like some time for questions. I would like to see what more community, some more benchmarking, see what that is. I think 10 is too few with the footprint that will come walk around your food area. You could drive around and not find any of the 10. But I also don't want that to be just open. That 14 and 15 come in. I want to make sure we have oversight. Not let someone.
Maybe a good approach, if this is agreeable to council, is have Matt and Jason work on this to then bring it back to another committee of the whole. I think it's important to get it right, and I love the dialogue, and I think this is really good. Thank you,
Try to give ourselves at least an hour next time too, I guess, because we'll have it more well refined. There's some other changes and some typos and stuff.
So always keep in mind that the way these are set up is that these are done by the staff. So the directions that you give them, this isn't something every food truck is going to come to us for approval. The only thing that'll come to us for approval will be those food courts that will have to go through the Plan Commission. But thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
Alderman Rozak, thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Give us a couple minutes and I just got to check. We're ready to move forward. Alderman Rozak. Just had to make sure we had clerk carrying.
I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Protection Welfare Committee and ask if appropriate notifications been provided.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has.
Our one and only item of business is 2A, discussion on repealing and creating certain sections of our municipal code related to emergency management and the intermunicipal agreement. Is anyone going to talk on this, or is it
just you?
Oh, wow.
But we also have Attorney Ripple's happy to give an oversight. And we have both chiefs are here.
I'm happy to talk about it. I've been working on a couple of these changes through Protection of Welfare and with Stan, and actually kind of both chiefs in some fashion or another on these changes. What you see in the packet is essentially the exact same ordinance in all of our member communities of the joint Western Lakes Fire District. So Ottawa, Dousman, Town of Summit, and us have nearly identical ordinances, except the numbers will be changed slightly from community to community. This was discussed at the last joint owners meeting of creating a unified emergency management director and an emergency management board. What we'll end up doing is repealing and replacing our current 1.17 and 1.34, which are, kind of outdated. 1.34, actually, right now we have in Ottawa an emergency commission, which we've never really appointed anyone to. We've never done anything with. So we're going to end up creating an emergency management board, which for us will be the mayor on the board, along with our police chief. And then obviously the chief of the fire district is also part of that board. And we'll come up with a lot of the things that occur within this document. That's all I can say about it. I think the document speaks for itself. I don't have any major issues. I've looked at a couple of different versions of this over the last month or so, and there's been some changes and revisions. And I think, I don't know if Chief or Stan can talk about if this has been adopted. Chief Bowen or Stan, if either one of you can tell us, has this been adopted by the other communities yet, or has it been presented to them, or where are we at with the other communities?
And Dousman? Everybody but us.
Okay.
Basically, I think the dynamic here is we had an ordinance that set up this director, and it was pretty much wide open. It was a nomination by the mayor with a confirmation by the county council. So it could have been me. No, I'm not a citizen. Never mind. But I guess it could be me because it's not. It's neutral as to residency. Obviously the committee that is your appointed representative to the Western Lakes Fire Commission and the others felt that this would be a good idea. I do understand that it really relates more to large events that might cross jurisdictional boundaries, as opposed to right now, you're covered under your current ordinances. Your police chief is the chief individual to deal with problems in the city as it relates to law enforcement, and also, emergency events that require law enforcement. And under your current ordinance, your fire chief is responsible likewise for public safety purposes and is appointed as that person inside your community. So I don't know, whether or not this is a big situation or not. Quite frankly, I'm not convinced that you need this at all, but it is something that was discussed in the context of the your intermunicipal commission that gets together with for the Western Lakes Fire Department. So policy, up to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So my understanding that this position, if we had a trained, this would be an act. This position may be enacted at that point. You have multi-jurisdictional response. You have police and fire, police to secure the area, fire to deal with any injury, fatality, potential dousing of the area. From a chemical standpoint, you may then require an emergency management director to oversee that. Or a tornado that bounces between the town of Ottawa and the city of Ottawa.
Sure. So emergency management is a lot of the planning and coordination, training, preparedness. It does play a role in a large scale and a prolonged type incident. And Chief Lister and Chief Berger and I have talked, over the last several months, as well as Chief Hartert and Wallace over at the town of Oconomowoc and Summit. Just because it's a train derailment, we did have the train accident. That doesn't mean automatically every big incident, if it's a short period of time, that may not include emergency management in the response function. In the planning phase, yeah, that's why we have a plan. That's why we review the plan. That's why we complete trainings together. and throughout the community, as well as including our elected officials and other administrative staff. If it's a prolonged derailment where we've got, tank cars that are leaking, something like that will reach the level of bringing emergency management, and not just at a local level, but at the Waukesha County level too. So this doesn't negate Waukesha County emergency management. It's all a spirit of cooperation with that. A lot of it is the planning, the preparedness, but then the coordination if there is a large scale incident in the EOC, whether it's a local EOC or a joint EOC, because it's something that a tornado that passed through Dousman to Summit to the city. It could be still a local EOC with each municipality meeting, or it could be a joint EOC, kind of like what we've been doing with the COVID response, where we all work together in that spirit of cooperation and send resources where they're most necessarily needed. However, when there's an incident, you're still going to have your local incident commanders of law enforcement or fire dealing with the actual incident. Emergency management is there to bring and coordinate logistics and resources together as a global concept. Did I cover what we, okay. Did I answer your question? And we already on a day-to-day basis, if there's a house fire or a tactical situation, we work on a unified command of police and fire working together, or even public works where Mark went. We all work together out in the streets. It's that formal, that plan, that logistics, and rather than, and that's where this came up is, rather than having 5 different plans that might have some little nuances, have one plan and one guidebook with appendices specific to the municipalities. And actually it helps because every municipality will have the whole product, and we can see what Town of Oconomowoc has for available resources, or Village of Summit has, and vice versa, which kind of goes in line with mutual aid between municipalities.
Okay, what is new ordinance? I'm going to give you 2 examples, and you tell me exactly how this ordinance is. Let's assume at the high school there's a major emergency. How does the ordinance work?
Yeah.
Let's say a gas leak, or even better than that, let's say shooter. Okay, how does this work?
Shooter? Well, local response.
Right. I mean, when you talk about an active assailant at the high school, that's going to kick in, obviously, our mutual aid with law enforcement and so forth. At some point, we might set up a command center. I don't know that they would actually go to the level of emergency management. If it was a prolonged situation where we had hostages or something of that nature, then we could. I'm sorry? Deceased people in there? Correct. At that point, we may switch over to emergency management because we may have to coordinate with the medical examiner's office and so forth. So it could come into play there. So of that. Sure. Once emergency management is activated, then the chief of Western Lakes Fire Department would be in charge.
Fires, or anything for that matter. In this case, is it still the chief? What happens?
It would still be the chief of Western Lakes Fire Department. Obviously, you're talking something that scale, you bring in the county, you start bringing in the federal that supersedes, but he's our representative from the city that the information would flow down through him to me and then through our department. So, sure.
I just have one comment when I looked at this. Whenever I look at where we're putting one person always in that position, I think it's always important to put the best person in that position every single time. While I'm very, very confident right now with Chief Bone, and I have no concerns at all, I don't see in it what I call an out clause where if all of a sudden down the road we have a really bad fire chief. And we know that, in a very short period of time, we can rescind an ordinance in 24 hours. Maybe we don't need to address it. I always like to look at it as how can we be proactive so that you as a council can act quickly. So I discussed this a little bit with Alderman Rozak, also Attorney Riffle. I'll turn it back to you, Alderman Rozak.
Well, what was your discussion with that tonight? What did you think?
Well, that question has nothing to do with the ordinance. That question has to do with the contract and our out clause in the contract. I didn't pull the contract. Imagine Brad knows the answer to the question, what is the out under the contract? 1 year
talking about getting out of Western Lakes, but he's talking about if we don't like a future fire chief for some reason.
Oh, you change your ordinance.
Yeah, I'd say you change the ordinance, or the same thing. Even if I'm out of line, you've got appointees to both the fire board that manages our day-to-day operations, but also the commission. So if I retire and we're selecting a new fire chief, you do have appointees of the fire commission, and hopefully, you communicate with the commission. I know our commission currently is very open of what does the common council, what do the owners want to see in a fire chief. So you got multiple options as far as management of the position.
Yeah, thank you. I'd ask Attorney Ripley if you could correct me if I'm wrong, just for clarification on when this would all apply. What it shows under declarations of emergency, it says shall be made by the governor and at a local level by the council or the mayor. Right. So really, this isn't going to take effect until action of this body occurs, or if the governor declares it for a locality.
That's right.
I think in most incidents, it's still going to be the fire chief for fire and EMS issues. It's going to be the police, it's going to be all public works until a larger scale event.
Correct.
I think that's 100% right.
I'm comfortable. Yeah.
I've got I drafted some language as an out clause in this if we wanted to, and I can run that by our folks before the full council meeting next week and by the mayor, and we decide to drop it in. It can be an option. Yeah. And we can either take it or leave it. I drafted something, but it's not in the kind of final form. So, Lou?
I don't remember, I shouldn't remember the whole this detail, but is this identified specifically for the Western Lakes Fire District Chief or the Western Lakes Fire District, where we have the person line being the chief and that chief is involved in something or not here, that there's some depth that has some
Yeah, so if you look at page 3, it originally goes to the chief, but then the assistant deputy directors, should he not. So Brad's part of a massive explosion that turns into a multi-jurisdictional event for whatever reason it's declared an emergency by the mayor. Brad's dead. Chief Bowen's dead.
You're gruesome tonight.
The board have already appointed assistant deputy director as part of that process. Correct.
If we built in that depth, because if somebody's out on vacation or out of town, by default it got put with the fire chief, like a lot of our other intermunicipal agreement documents, but there's depth, and then also the board of the emergency management appoints the deputies, and we've got that depth there as well.
I think that's a really council that understands that is identified for that, so that person will hear that.
I mean, that was one of the reasons why I started looking into changing this and thinking about it, talking about it, is because we had one person, that person was gone on vacation. We no longer had that person to rely on. I think it would have naturally just gone to probably the deputy chief of police or a fire chief at the time. But it was undefined, and now we have that definition. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chairman Rosen. I did want to point out on section 6.05, and all of these points I did report to Attorney Ripple, so he knew about it as well as Chief Bowen, so they could look into it. But 6.05, I think that mutual aid agreements should still be approved by the city council as they are now with any other agreements that we have in place, and not just by the emergency management board. We'll have 2 representatives and the mayor and the police chief under this, but the council may still want to maintain some of that authority.
And Matt, isn't it true that the current mutual aid agreement has been approved by the council?
It has been.
Okay. I think that's a good addition. We can make that change.
You could actually take it out of this ordinance. It would have the same effect. So obviously, council would have to approve any mutual aid agreements, period. So I'd just take 6.05 and renumber everything, or take it out, number everything else.
Then the only other item I had was that I was curious to see where the emergency management comprehensive general plan is. I know that's cited in here, and that kind of goes closely with this ordinance, because with adoption of the ordinance, that plan would really, we want that to be in effect and know what that implies.
All right, so that was something that Matt and I talked about as well. So currently what we did is, after we met in September, is got a copy of the draft plan from the city of Oconomowoc that Chief Berger had worked on. And we're bringing the two plans together at the same time, because there's been changes at the county level and regular updates. We received a copy of the most updated Waukesha County plan and the amendments that they want in there. We're about 75% of the way through combining that, as well as we sent a survey out to all the 4 partner owners asking for a list of the resources. So how quickly can you develop a plan? That with our staff that are working on the different components of that, and our goal is by the end of January that we've got one master plan, but right now we've got 2 separate plans like we have today. Does that answer your question? Okay.
All right, well, any other questions from the rest of the committee? So what I'll suggest we do is move this on with a change to 6.05 related to common council approval. We can make that change. I think the easiest way to do is to swap out approval of the emergency management board and swap in common council. To me, that makes the most sense, because then it's this ordinance stays similar to the other ordinances, the other jurisdictions, and then we have that ability to approve those mutually. Okay, with that change, I'll entertain a motion to move this on to common council.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's move on to finance, which should be a little quicker, and we'll take a quick break right after finance. And thank you folks for coming. I'm sorry it's going to be a little bit delayed from the 7:50 start time.
I'm on the button again here, huh? What?
Again,
This is what it's like to be mayor.
Alderman Rosen.
I'll call the meeting to order of the finance committee and ask the city clerk if appropriate meeting notification has been provided.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has.
Okay, the only business before us today is consider act on the vouchers for November 2020. We've received, as always, the packet ahead of time. I've had a chance to review that. It's also been reviewed by our comptroller, which is Alderman Spiegelberg. And our voucher number is always presented. Everyone else. Evan.
$3,973,575.65.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. We'll take a really quick, brief break, and we'll start at 7:40 prompt. Again, folks in the audience, sorry for the delay. If you plan to have public comment, there's some blue cards in the back. Mr. Gallo has those around. If you could please fill those out. We'd be happy to hear your thoughts today. Thank you.
Shout again.
Is it going to only be one presentation?
Everything's thorough. You like it?
Figure this out. Okay, so it's going to be like a little mini screen. I'll probably have you just put your face or anything.
I love my face on the TV. Oh,
And that comes down? Yeah, just click stop sharing. So let me try. I won't hit it, but okay. Got it.
I can tell you that I I've actually tried it because I didn't know this. They would work. Yes. To have an upgrade. And so upgrade. So we're all. You can upgrade everybody wants one.
I'll take our seats.
Thumbs up.
I'd like to call to order the City of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting for Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Thank you. Would we all please rise for the pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Kiefer. Here. Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Rogers.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Alderman Zappel.
Here. As a reminder, this is a hybrid virtual meeting, so everyone that's speaking, if you can speak clearly into the microphone, that will help our remote guests. Those that are attending the meeting via WebEx, if you have a question, on the lower right-hand portion of the screen on WebEx, you'll see a raise your hand, and we have people monitoring that. So especially during the public hearing, if you want to make comment, we want to make sure that your voice is heard. For the public hearing coming up, folks, we'd like to try to limit the comments to 3 minutes if possible. I'm not going to run a clock or anything, but if you can be short and concise, we'd appreciate it. The purpose of the public hearing is for the public to share their views for the council to hear. It's not a dialogue, a two-way dialogue. But what we will do is we'll start off before we open the public hearing with Jason Gallo, our city planner, who will share some of the thoughts and get everybody up to speed and as a follow-up from the Plan Commission meeting. I have some cards here. If we can still take more cards for the public hearing once that starts. And again, those in the audience, thank you for coming. Mr. Gallo, I'm going to turn it over to you if you can give us a little update and also share some of the comments that the community has given the Plan Commission at recent meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Common Council. I'll give a brief overview of this public hearing application for Morgan Station subdivision. This is a rezoning of 30.39 acres. The location is in the far southwest section of the city of Oconomowoc. It's in the extreme corner. It's highlighted with the red circle. And I want to let you know that this screen that is being shown is being shared with people on the WebEx, so everyone is following along. Hopefully this technology is working. But the property in blue, the blue line is the city limits. So you can see this is on the north side of Valley Road and on the east side of Morgan Road, so it is the extreme limit of there. It does have a property address of 9720 Valley Road. I always like to give a context of the surrounding area just to give you some idea on what we're talking about that's around it. So the site is again highlighted with a red circle and the word site on it, so you can see that that area. The area to the south is the village of Summit, and everything to the west is the town of Concord. To the north, we have a few large rural lots, and then we have the subdivision of Hickorywood Farms, which is single-family residential, and east of that, we have Riverline subdivision, and as you go down Valley Road, you get, there's future residential, I call it, because there's no homes there now, but those are zoned residential, and then we have a school. We have the Silver Lake Intermediate School to the further down. So tonight the request is a zoning change. It's changing it currently, it's zoned UR, which is Urban Reserve, which acts as more of a holding zone for future development. UR allows certain things to happen, like farming, for example. And they'd like to change it to suburban residential and a little bit of residential multi-unit low. Low stands for low density, not low income or anything like that. It's residential multi-unit low. The zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. There's no need to amend the land use plan. We always have to make sure that any zoning change is consistent with the city's comprehensive land use plan. I want to show you our existing zoning map. This is not the entire city, but the section of that portion blown up so you can understand what we're dealing with. The subject property has got the red circle and it's got that white with little green marks, that's urban reserve, okay? This property and the one directly to the east is also urban reserve, but the stuff to the north is yellow and that's suburban residential. That's what the request would be going to for mostly. And then there's a small 1.69 acres that would be a residential multi-unit low. The green, if you're wondering, that's more of a rural residential. Those are larger single-family lots, and then everything is white to the south and to the west because that's not in our community. So again, the majority of the site would be asked to be rezoned to suburban residential. That's that yellow district on the zoning map. It would be consist of 28.7 acres. There's an area that the brown arrow is pointing to that's residential multi-unit low. That is for duplex zoning. Those would be condominiums. That would be the ownership, but the use is residential duplex use. And that little area would be, now this is a concept drawing. I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but I just wanted to show you this was the rezoning exhibit. So there are some nearby neighborhoods. Again, it's very important to look at the surrounding context. There's Riverline, which contains 60 single-family homes, and there's Hickorywood Farms, 192. It's really, okay. So this would like to develop into 43 single-family homes and 4 duplexes. That would be 8 additional units. So a total of 51 residential units would be proposed. This is their concept plan. There's a few things I thought was really important to share with you on this concept plan. Number one is the wetlands and the uplands that are not being developed, somewhat in the center of the site here. That's all to be remain in perpetuity and as open space. That'll be in an outlot that'll be owned by the homeowners association. Some of this area will be used for stormwater management purposes, but others will be used by the homeowners as like walking trails and park benches. They do show a concept plans for some roadways as well. The rezoning exhibit was included in the packet. This is what the zoning ordinance that is in your packet is tied to. The concept plan was a little bit different than this, so I just wanted, there was concerns raised by a plan commissioner that, hey, what are we actually zoning? This is what would be attached to it, the zoning exhibit. So I zoomed in a little bit for the area with the concept plan to show the road connections. We're not talking road connections tonight, but it was brought up at the plan commission. So I wanted to show you how this would kind of tie in to the overall thing. Woodside Drive would be connected. There was concerns raised at the plan commission meeting about the layout. Now, this is not really the time and place, but this is the only public hearing that people will have to talk about this, because this is the public hearing. This is a zoning request tonight, not the final determination of the subdivision. I think that's really important. And I'll repeat that. This is zoning only, but this is the only time that people have to talk about their concerns with this. And it's really important that we take into account the current residents' concerns. So what was raised at Plan Commission? The multifamily, is that going to be apartments? Is it going to be high rise? Is it going to be low income? There was concerns about that. So we talked, it's condominiums, it's duplex. The wildlife impacts, we talked about that. There's a lot of wildlife out there. I heard there was an albino deer out there that people see. And, you know, we talked about the developer is keeping a lot of that into open space for the wildlife purposes. There's an increase in traffic. They talked about the rural feel with the traffic being, you know, to go away. The improvements are needed to the Valley Road intersection, and that's the intersection of Valley Road and Morgan Road. That is being done. That's being designed next year, and it'll take place after that. The roadway is being changed. believe Morgan is going to come down and kind of tee in the Valley Road a little bit. So that is being changed. Bike and pedestrian traffic connectivity was a really big thing that came up at Plan Commission. They said they would like to walk or bike along Valley Road. It's just not a safe area right now, and they would like to walk more in this area, and they would like to see that. And this isn't the time to design trails, but this is important for us to know as this development progresses. The homes are too close to Valley Road and to Morgan Road, so we can look at that. But this scale, the homes would be quite a few back there. Are dedicating roadway along both of these roads, so the homes would meet all of the setback requirements. Property values. They were asking what kind of homes are these going to be built on, and I had a chance to speak with the applicant since that time, and the square footage of the homes were not known at the public hearing, but he said to me on the phone since the meeting that the ranch homes would be 1,600 square foot minimums, and the 2 stories would be 2,000 square feet minimums, which is very similar to the Hickory Wood Farms development that is consistent with their HOA requirements. Those are minimums. They obviously could get larger homes than that. Street lighting too bright. They want to make sure, and that we will take a look at that with the balancing act between the ruralness of the area to maintain that, as well as safety for people turning into the subdivision. There'll be lights at the intersections. The opening of Woodside Drive was talked about, and could this be maintained as a cul-de-sac? And I stated that planners encourage connectivity, and that there's issues, and I'll get into that a little bit more as well, with keeping that open. Subsidized housing, we want you to know this is a zoning request only tonight, but the developer confirmed that there is not to be subsidized. That's not why there's a little pocket of multifamily. The duplexes will be condominiums. They're not rentals, and it's not subsidized in any fashion from the government. Is the developer paying a special assessment? I think that's important for the council to know that this area is part of a special assessment area. There was $280,000 special assessment for when the city put the infrastructure in the ground, the sewer, and there was interest running another $120,000. So there's a $400,000 note on this property that has to be paid to the city before they can develop. And the developer has not asked for any waiver of that or any reduction. He's paying the full special assessment. The assessment was for 51 units to be on this property, and that's what they've come in with. Could they get rid of this little multifamily load? Yes, the Plan Commission talked about that. They could still get 51 units, but all the lots would get even smaller. So it seemed to make sense to allow some duplexes on there. And then was the utilities and cable being installed? And yes, that'll all go part of this development. These were just concerns raised at the Plan Commission. I wanted to talk a little bit, let's get this red thing out so we don't confuse you, about the extension of Woodside Drive. I went and I counted 252 single-family homes in this development. There was concerns raised, and you may hear it tonight by speakers, that Woodside Drive should be closed. This roadway here was built all the way to the edge of the property line without a T-turnaround or a cul-de-sac bulb or a home at the end of it. This was meant to be extended. Right now, there's 2 access drives to serve 252 lots. At 10 trips a day, that's 2,500 trips going through these 2 access points. This was made as a relief valve to end up, continuing on. So it's for public safety, not only for the people in this subdivision to have a second way out, but it's for these people in the existing subdivision to get out of that if there's an issue going on, or for emergency responders to get to them in case one of these exits are blocked or barricaded. So that's really the main reason is safety. There's other reasons, you know, school bus routes, there's snow plowing, there's pizza delivery guys, there's Amazon trucks, you know, all these reasons there should be extended through.
Mr. Gallo, can you go back to that picture, please? In the one section right behind the homes on Morgan Road, on the east side of Morgan Road, there's green space available. Would you share with the council who owns that green space so that they're informed?
That is city-owned property. That's open space that was dedicated to the city. And, you know, the plans for that have not been finalized, but we would like to make use of that. We feel it is an asset. There could be a trail system through there someday. But, you know, we're still looking at all sorts of different things. That just kind of came into the city, you know, within the last few years. One last point about the connectivity of that road. This road was specifically designed with a kink in it right here on Woodside Drive. That is a traffic calming device, so it's not a speedway that people will come racing down straight through all the way to Valley Road. There is purposely designed to have a specific little bit of a kink in there. So I just thought I would add that in as well. So where do we go from here? The Plan Commission did hold a public hearing. We had shared with you all the comments and feedback that I was aware of. They did recommend the zoning to you back on December 9th. And it was unanimous decision to recommend that. The second public hearing is scheduled before you right now. And it is on the council agenda for action this evening. And again, it's the zoning only. This will require a future subdivision plat, both a preliminary and then a final, to create these residential lots. There will also be a developer's agreement in there to talk about, you know, street trees and traffic, stop signs and street lights and all those things. So I do support the zoning change. I feel it is consistent with the land use plan. The land use plan does show it at up to 3 dwelling units per acre, and this is only coming in at 1.6 dwelling units per acre. This does not violate the 60-40% housing ratio that we've established in the plan. All of these homes would be owner occupied, so it actually increases the amount of single family and decreases the amount of multifamily. It's adjacent to single family. This was a continuation of the existing roadway system. It was meant to be continued. The utilities, this was planned by our utilities before I even started, so we're talking over 15 years ago for 51 units, and that is what's coming in today. So for those reasons, I can support this zoning change. I recommend that you approve the ordinance that's in your packet to rezone lands for the Morgan Station subdivision at 9740 Valley Road. I'll be available to answer any additional questions after the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. At this time, I'd like to open a public hearing for the Morgan Station rezone. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public comment on rezoning 30.39 acres located at 9740 Valley Road. The request includes rezoning 28.7 acres from urban reserve to suburban residential and 1.69 acres from urban reserve to residential multi-unit low. The intent is to develop this parcel into 51-unit residential subdivisions consisting of single-family and duplex condominiums. So I have, from the audience, I have 3 blue cards. If there are more, please hand them to Mr. Gallo. I'll start with Frank Hazy. Frank, if you can come up, if you could just state your address and mailing address and name.
Sure.
To the audience, and the more you can speak into the microphone, the more helpful it is. So thank you, sir.
Okay, from my Frank Hazy, my address is North 6611 Morgan Road. I live right across from the RML zoning area. I'm opposed to the rezoning of the 1.6 acres. It just, to me, if you're going to rezone it, keep it all the same. I drove through Riverline Sunday. Those lots are all 3/4 an acre or plus. I drove through the other subdivision. And that one all is 1/3 acre to ½ acre lots. All of these lots are going to be a 1/4 acre or smaller, which to me is not consistent with what's already there. So if you drive through and physically look at the subdivisions, this is just adding more people and packing it into a smaller little area. I'm not sure why we're stuck on the 51 home number, that why couldn't it be 45 or 40, that these lots could be consistent with what you see in the Foxwood subdivision, that maybe we should upsize these lots a little more so the people that are there existing don't feel so crowded, because it is packing a lot of stuff into a small little area. And he talked about 250 homes and the traffic coming in and out of the 2 other lines. Well, now you're adding 50 homes just in this little corner. It's going to add quite a bit. So to me, I'm against the zoning of the RML, that it should just stay all SR, that suburban style. And those are my points. So.
Thank you very much. Patrick Stroley. Patrick, can you please pronounce your last name? I'm having a hard time.
Sure, you bet. It's Patrick Strolkirch.
Strolkirch?
Correct, Strolkirch. Mayor, Common Council, good evening. Patrick Strolkirch, 1501 Woodside Drive, Hickorywood Farms. I'm also the Vice President of the Hickorywood Farms Homeowners Association. My property is the southern property line is in the northeast corner there, and would abut the proposed developments of lot 36, 37, and 38. To start out, there was a statement made at the last meeting in response to the public concern of what about the wildlife? How will this impact it? The response from the developer was this: the DNR has done an environmental impact study and the result was no impact. That is not true. I phoned the DNR today to request information about that. An environmental impact study was not done, but rather an endangered species assessment letter was drafted by Anna Rosler and stated that there are no threatened or endangered or protected species in this area. This is not a wildlife impact study as presented per the Wisconsin DNR. In addition, there are several albino deer that bed in this area, and those are protected. So the DNR is now aware of that, and we'll be looking into that closer. We're talking about the zoning of this. I built my home in 2007. At that time, the parcel was zoned agricultural in the town of Summit. This is what I bought into. This is why I built there. January 2010, it was annexed into the city of Oconomowoc, held in the UR zoning. I knew at that time houses would be built and assumed same houses of the same size, same lot consistency to make sure that everything flowed well. The Oconomowoc 2050 development plan shows this parcel as suburban residential. So this truly is a changing of the zoning, which they're looking to do for this RML zoning. So that is something above and beyond to consider. It does not flow with the 2050 development plan at all. This is not what the 192 plus residents of Hickorywood Farms bought into, and this will significantly impact the use and enjoyment of our properties. The current density statements are in question as well. Mr. Gallo presented tonight that it's 30.39 acres. The paperwork from the developer says it's 31.48. The tax key assessment says it's 27 acres. Currently property classed at 20 acres agricultural, 5 undeveloped, and 2 ag with improvements. So what is the true acreage here to determine the density? Does anybody know? I've got 3 different acreages presented here tonight. If you look at the density, it's a gross density calculation of 1.62 dwellings per acre. If you look at the net density, it's actually 3.61 homes per acre. This does not blend well. The existing density already established in this area of development application states that it does blend well. Tell me if it blends well with that difference in net and gross. The current Hickorywood Farms density net comparison is about 2 dwellings per acre, as compared about to the 3.61 net density acres proposed. That's nearly double. It's not consistent. It doesn't blend well. The houses will be smaller lots. If we're looking at 1,600 square feet for a single unit, level, 1 story and 2,000 per 2 story, my house is 4,300 square feet. That doesn't blend. If you look at what I just mentioned with the zoning, I really would like to know where this acreage differences come from. And then if you look at how the intersection of Morgan and Valley will be changed and will take away acreage from this property as well, plus turning lanes into the subdivision that's proposed, you're losing even more acreage. So that density, both net and gross, changes. My ask is do not allow the rezoning of the suburban residential to RML as this is not consistent with the 2050 development plan. It does not fit this area. Redefine the acreages as there is discrepancies, as I mentioned. Require a true wildlife impact study, as Rosalie stated at the last meeting. Do not allow Woodside Drive to be continued south of Valley Road. The reasons noted for that, I lived there for 13 years at the end, and it's been a non-issue with emergency vehicles. Even Mr. Kowalski had stated at the last meeting that he was opposed or had reconsidered if Woodside could remain detached and not extended. It's not necessary. This could be a completely different subdivision separate from ours. While it's there and unwanted, that would be acceptable if the developer decided to put a turnaround at the end of Woodside Drive to keep it closed off. You've already divulged what the architect requires possibly for their square footage. That is not consistent with the covenants and restrictions of Hickorywood Farms, and I will share that with anybody if they would like them. So a lot of things that were presented are not true, not correct. Density, 2050 plan. Our ask is just to leave it. The tagline of the city is natural. Let's keep it natural. You're asking for a rezoning to RML. That does not fit in this space entirely at all. If any of you want to come over and sit on my deck, look over this land and determine a difference, because we live there, I would invite you to do so. If you've not even drove through it, you really should. And again, 1501, stop by, we'll sit on my deck and drink some cocktails. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason McKillop.
Jason McKellips, 1472 Memorial Lane West. Like Patrick and Fred said, the RML was never there. When we purchased our lot about 10 years ago, we purchased it knowing that possibly in the future single-family home use could happen. Looking at it since 2000, the city of Oconomowoc had significant growth in population, 15% compared to Waukesha County in the state of Wisconsin, which is hovered about 6 to 7% over the same period. So we keep looking at adding to the city, but I'm also concerned about what services are going to get added to. Our police department's understaffed. Will the fire department have to add because all the stuff that we're for future for down Valley Road? Looking at that, our municipality services, our roads need to be fixed out that way. Plowing, general maintenance. We also Waukesha outgrow the water. Do we have enough water in our plans for the city? So looking at a couple of those things, and we need enough resources to keep our community strong. With these additions, as well as adding the apartments down the road on Valley, the impacts to our schools, have we talked to the school board or the school district to make sure that we can even take these 51 homes? Size of the lot's a big thing. Go out there and drive through what Patrick just said. Our lot sizes are a lot bigger than what are proposed. The RML zoning shouldn't be approved by this council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Dwayne Benz, 1473 Woodside Drive. We do have a consensus among all the houses that are on Woodside Drive that abut to the north side of that proposed development. We do not want Woodside to go through. We had this discussion last week. I hope you take that into consideration. We really don't see a need for that to continue through. We've been there for, some of the houses like Patrick have been there for 13 years without that extension all the way through. It would disrupt the traffic patterns that we see right now. So once again, the houses that abut that north side of that property on Woodside Drive, we do have consensus. We do not want Woodside to connect through. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Lagolia. Sorry.
Robert LaLoggia, 1240 Mammoth Lane West. I'm not going to say what everyone else just said because that was part of my point. The only thing I have to say is I moved with my wife from Milwaukee to get away from the urban sprawl. We've been here 5 months, and I understand growth, but I also understand a couple of the other points is everybody needs to be fair and honest. You say this, you need to stick with this and not say, I meant it when I said it. No. You need to just be fair and honest of what you're doing. And if you can go home and look in the mirror and tell yourself you've been fair and honest for everybody here, then you're going to do what you have to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the audience here on site? I'd like to shift over. Do we have any remote virtual folks that have comments for the public hearing? Ms. Sullivan? We're just sorry for the delay. We just want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak.
Are there any comments from outside people that would like to respond at the public hearing at this time?
Seeing that there's none, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing and move on to our next agenda item. We welcome the audience to stay as you can listen to council discussion on the topic we just discussed. I'd like to make a motion for approval of meeting minutes. Second. All in favor? Aye. On to any other comments or suggestions from citizens? Any comments remotely from citizens? Any virtual comments? Hands up. No. Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda items for the Treasury report for November of 2020. Would anyone like to make a motion? Move to accept. All in favor? Aye. We'll move on to Plan Commission item. Consider act on ordinance 20-0992 to rezone land suburban residential district and residential multi-unit low Morgan Station subdivision. This is the first reading. Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you. We held a public hearing on this just now and we had a few speakers. I'd like to just maybe make a few comments regarding things that I heard at the meeting, maybe some clarifications for the benefit of the council. I heard the words wildlife impact statement. I'm not quite even familiar with what that is. I believe it does exist, but I can tell you our ordinance doesn't require wildlife impact statements. We've never done one for other developments in the city. Something that if you want, I can certainly look into. I can make phone calls to the DNR, but you know, with this development, as you've seen it, there is a, you know, not quite half, but just below half of it is going to be maintained as open space. The density calculation, yes, there was an inconsistency between Waukesha County GIS and the map that I showed you up on the screen. I believe the surveyor is accurate. There is some dedication of roadway right-of-ways, so I think there is some different acreages. And we don't generally zone out to the center line of the road. So I believe the 30.39 acres is a correct density number to base your density off of. The house sizes at 1,600 and 2,000 square feet for a two-story and 1,600 for a single-story. I believe those are minimums, and I was told that those are consistent with the HOA's requirements. We don't have minimum house sizes, and I don't enforce HOA requirements, so I don't have records of those documents. But I was told that the developer did some researching, and he said that that is consistent. Now, there's 3 different phases in Hickory Wood Farms. Maybe there's different phases. I'm not sure. The school district was brought up. You know, I do get together with Dr. Rindo. You know, I try to get together with him once a year. He has better records than the city on keeping track of developments coming in. He knows where all the vacant land is. He circles it. We assign a number of units for that area. He's definitely aware of this land being turned over. The only thing they don't know is when. But when a subdivision that gets established, and all the school children graduate, generally those people stay there and become empty nesters. The school district relies on new subdivisions to come in and bring new children to maintain their levels of enrollment. We heard a little bit more about Woodside Drive being extended to go through. We heard that at Plan Commission. I said my piece on that. There are certain ordinances that we have to look at. We would like to see that road continue for public safety. And I think, you know, that is something that is not the argument tonight. That is during the plating process. Tonight is zoning, but we want you to know that there is concerns of the residents out there. So with that, I'll just look at my staff report. I think we covered mostly everything. Again, the number of units of 51 was selected by a number that the utilities assigned to this. We could go the whole thing as suburban residential to be consistent with the plan, but there is the density is consistent with the plan, so I feel it already is consistent with the plan. We do have subdivisions that have duplexes mixed in within the subdivision. I believe Alderman Ellis's subdivision has duplexes mixed in to that subdivision. So it's not unusual to find little pockets of duplex mixed in within single family. So I thought that was very consistent with the overall density of the area. Could they get down to doing all single suburban residential and still maintain 51 units? They could, but the lots would be even smaller. I don't know what the size of these lots are, but yeah, I'm thinking they're around 12,000 square feet. They maybe could shave them down to 11,000 square feet. So it could happen. So I think it is consistent. We went through all the findings with the Plan Commission. We feel this is appropriate. I feel it does meet the findings of the zoning ordinance. The housing ratios, we talked about that earlier. It goes from 68.25% being single family to 68.42 single family. So it actually brings the single family percentage up a little bit. So again, because of the housing ratios, the land use is consistent and the utilities is in line with what we planned. You know, if they were coming in with 62 units or something, I would have reservations, but this is consistent. So I do recommend approval. I'll be available to answer questions.
I'd like to open up for council members with any questions for Mr. Gallo. For example.
Okay. I just want to thank Matt, Administrator Ivan, and Jason for the notes and audio in the planning meeting. Couldn't be there. I wrote these down in my office. A lot of the same concerns tonight. The concern in regards to the DNR impact study, but I think Jason addressed that in regards to concerns there. And then in regards to the findings of looking to see if there is animals that are endangered, you know, that's a common thing. What we do with all developments in regards to endangered species, all developments in the city is that.
I don't think that's under the city's jurisdiction and review. There's other plats go through various state, county, and I believe other departments are looking at those things. That's why I wasn't really familiar with endangered species or wildlife impact statements.
I mean, and to confirm it too, just for the record, there is an albino. I think you said multiple times there. I don't know about two, but I usually see them every few days. So that I have physically seen. Did you have other comments?
No, I was just wondering if that's standard or not.
Alderman Ellis.
Actually, Mayor, there are 3, and I've seen them in my yard.
In your yard? Well, that's a long trek from there.
Corey has asked that he rose his hand to maybe respond to some of the comments.
Sounds good. If you want to finish, Alderman Ellis, and then we'll go on to a virtual question.
Great. Now, as far as the Woodside Drive, it's my understanding that's this for continuity and for public safety. Am I correct?
Yes, that is true. Public safety is number one. Continuity for the existing residents as well as the future residents. Yes.
And think you already mentioned this, but as far as the wildlife impact study, is there such a study?
I believe the applicant will be addressing that.
So we have the applicant developer that is on virtually to answer questions from the council. Lori, is there a comment to that question from our applicant?
Just what Corey knows.
Oh, Corey, you're unmuted, you can speak.
We don't hear any audio. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Let's continue to move on and see once we get the audio, we can switch back there. Alderman Ellis, did you have any further comments?
No, I don't, not at this time. Thank you.
Alderman Rozak.
I do have a couple comments, a couple questions potentially for Jason. I want to be consistent with my previous decision on the Mandel apartments where we changed the master plan. What I've heard from the folks that have come tonight is it doesn't sound like, it sounds like there's some opposition to something being there, but I think they understand and grasp the fact that there's housing there at some point based on the master plan. But the master plan did not have this RML in it. Why did we not require this group to ask for a change to the master plan?
The overall density was consistent with the land use plan. The land use plan says shall be predominantly single family homes, but it does allow, we're talking 5 or 4 duplex units. I think really the intent there is consistent with the land use plan, and it says predominantly single family use.
Well, in my discussion on the Mandel project was they changed the use there. And what one of the gentlemen said, which kind of resonates a little bit with me, is we're kind of playing a shell game, right? We're saying this was the density we're supposed to be, but they're going to jam more into the space that they maybe shouldn't jam. And one of the ways they're doing that is to carve out the little RML. Overall, I'm not opposed to the plan. I am opposed to the RML. And, I think when people buy property, and frankly, I doubt anybody in the audience actually looked at this because I know I didn't when I bought my house. But you wouldn't go to the city planner and say, "Can I look at your master plan 2015 to this next 30 years and see what the planning and zoning is next to me?" But I think people generally have a feel for it, right? They look around and they say, "Oh, that probably is going to get developed to the edge of the road because on the other side is Summit and the other side is Jefferson County. So someday that's likely going to get developed." And just like what we expected out by me is that would be developed like it was promised, which was single family residential. What we are getting is hundreds and hundreds of apartments. So I think to be consistent with my previous opinions, what people expect is that should stay suburban residential, all of it, and we should not approve the RML. As far as some of the other points, and I don't know how we go about that, maybe I pull that out or amend that. And they can put 2 or 3 more homes there and I think reduce the amount of density. Is the road should go through. When the Newman property started building next to where I live, there were a lot of complaints from folks out there and my own neighbors, right, who said, "Well, we don't want the road to connect." That the road's supposed to connect, right? Roads connect. If the road will have any impact on someone, it's going to be on the folks that live in this new subdivision, because you're going to have all the 400 homes from above coming through their front yards, not really the other way around. So I think if anybody, it's going to impact those folks, and we should connect roads, especially if they were planned to be connected. And we did that with Agri Trail. We've done that with other areas around the city. As far as the wildlife argument, sure, we would love to keep things natural as much as possible, right? Have as much area and space. But there's also other concerns here, right? Which is someone bought this land and they have property rights and it's allowed to be developed. It's zoned, or was at least planned to be zoned as commercial or suburban residential rather. And those folks, they have rights too, and we have to consider that as we go through this. So overall, I'm in favor of it. I think the road should go through. at some point, once the discussion's over, I'm going to amend the request to remove the RML zoning as part of it. I don't like the pocket zoning. I don't like pocketing this little section out. I think it's a mistake.
Alderman Mulder. You know, Andy doesn't like it when someone says, I echo that, so I won't say I echo that, but I echo that. I agree. When I first saw this, I know that corner well because I've traversed it for every day since I've lived in Oconomowoc, seemingly until COVID. And I agree, that little pocket of the multi doesn't make sense to me there, and it's make it financially work. But I would agree that with one of the speakers who said this isn't, it's going to feel like you're going from one subdivision into a completely different subdivision, smaller homes, smaller lots, eight units stuck out on a corner. It made a lot of sense in some of the other subdivisions where it was planned in, people were liking that, their parents could live there around their grandchildren. This doesn't have that same feel at all, so I'm in complete agreement with you, Matt, that should be struck and it should all be SR zoning. I do think, again, with the road, I think when we did Pine Ridge West, we allowed just a single access point. I think that was the wrong thing to do there, and I think it would be wrong here. So again, have another subdivision with no secondary access. There hasn't been any need for another emergency access point, but you don't need it to. It's only inviting tragedy. Continue that as a policy to allow only one entrance point to a subdivision. We have a non-starter from
Another example. Echo Alderman Rozak.
Thank you for echoing both of you.
I like to speak.
I said much of the same stuff.
I know this isn't an issue we discussed tonight, but I just want to get on record with the connectivity. I would support your amendment to this, Rozak. But the connectivity, I think, would be huge, just from the standpoint, I live over on Shortridge Road, right next to the old Storms. We moved in there. I was like, oh, Storms is here. Well, when we moved in with our U-Haul, construction barriers are up. Disappointed, talked to the neighbors, they were upset, angry. I had a chance past couple days to talk to the neighbors after digesting a lot of this. And I just asked them in regards to connectivity and their thoughts on it. And they said, at first we didn't want it. You complained we had speeding fast cars in our neighborhood. Well, those are your neighbors already. But they see the public safety value and the ease to flow traffic in the community. But I know that's an issue that would be discussed at another time. But I would like to know if the developer, is it Corey, I believe, is able to speak at all?
Can we check Lori to see if he's able to connect? We have some questions for the developer.
Just to see if he has anything to add.
So the question posed is, does the developer have anything to add to the comments for council? He might be able to call the cell phone.
I've checked, I have unmuted him. I've seen him try to unmute himself.
If we can continue to try to find that answer, that'd be great. Let's move on. Alderman Rogers.
Just a couple things. I think, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I think what bothers me about developments that we're experiencing is lot size continues to get small. You look at the picture of Riverline and the subdivision and it's all about how many houses can be crammed in, and whatever years ago, 51 units was the number. There's a money side to this, right? There's a developer that's got his skin in the game that expects to make X, and I get it. What bothers me is I don't think a 12,000 square foot lot is fair. I think it's ridiculous. Like when you're considering 0.4 to bigger or whatever is your neighbor's lot. I don't like the idea of, well, no, we can put tiny ones here so you can put more in. I'm not a fan of the condos, first of all. Secondly, I don't care if the road goes through or not. But thirdly, lot size is a big deal to me. You move down to that southern corner, you're as far away from the center of the city as you can possibly be. So you can have a big lot-ish. I don't think they should be 12 up. I'm not in agreement actually with this at all, except for the road going through. So I'm not in support of it. I don't agree. Because I'm tired of, Newman did it in Pabst Farms, if I'm not mistaken, and it seems to be a common theme, and I don't like not having control over some of this stuff. And this one, I'm not a fan.
Alderman Ellis.
Okay, I agree with you.
Absolutely. You sound surprised.
As far as continuity is concerned, I think it should be within the same of other surrounding community. In this case, because the lots are getting smaller, I don't see that. Andy, I'm also agreeing with you. I think that the lot size has to be within that area. One of my other concerns, and I've mentioned this before, this was for you, Mayor, was in reference to staff recommendation, where it says for the city engineer, okay, for an email, okay. I like to see signatures there, because that shows me that there was some sort of acknowledgement, and it gives me more confidence in my decision making in reference to the decisions that I have to make. It may seem trivial, but it really is not. It's something that I need to do.
No, I think we hear that loud and clear. Jason, you want to comment on that, please?
We would love to get signatures of every staff member to have them before you, but in this case, we don't. I don't want people from outside of City Hall coming into my office with the COVID pandemic going on. I did ask them to email me and ask me, and I would send the entire application to them, say, do you have any issues? So I have them all listed right here: fire, engineering, parks, utilities, the sign-offs. And I'd be happy to share these with you, that they are truly signed off. I keep these in my file as a record. But the less people coming into City Hall, the better. All of these people, fire, they're outside of the building. Engineering is in a different city. Parks is in the community center, and utilities are in a different building. We don't want these people to come to City Hall, and I don't want them in my office. There's COVID going around, and I need to be here. So the less interaction I have with people grabbing my pen or doing whatever they have to do, the better. So I would love to get you the sign-offs, but I don't want to do that.
And I respect that. As suggested, just as a suggestion, maybe it's a bad suggestion.
Okay, I'll take that up with our city administrator, and I'll ask him to report back to you.
I appreciate that.
Alderman Kavieski.
So we have a couple of echoes. This won't be another one. I know I'm going to break it. One of the things that we consistently talk about in regards to property is the expectations that the private property owner has. I would imagine that the person who bought this property bought it because they were expecting to develop up to 51 homes here. That's what it was planned for. So if you don't like the lot size, or if you don't like the RML, I get that, and I'd actually be okay removing the RML zoning from here. But it was anticipated to be 51 homes. So I don't think it's a shell game or saying one thing and doing another. I think it's very much in line with I'm going to buy this. I'm going to invest in this property. I have the ability to do 51 homes here, and how do I best do that? Is the next question. So if that lot size can be adjusted bigger. Typically, I am all for connectivity. Jason knows that. I've said that before. But having Woodside Drive not go through, I mentioned before, and that I'm actually an advocate for not having that go through. I think Arthur's Pass is planned to go to be that east-west connector, and it would come out on Valley Road, one plot to the east. I think that is very acceptable. I think that's very acceptable. I think it helps maintain the rural setting a little bit. I don't think it, again, my opinion, I don't think it compromises public safety. Chief Bowen and Chief Visser are here. Obviously, I would imagine that anything response this area specifically being Woodside Drive would probably come off of Valley Road. My concern for access into this area is the increased density is more similar to what we see on Highway Z. You have kind of a rural county highway get developed, and now it's not a city. So having turn lanes into Woodside Drive off of Valley and off of Morgan to that that can serve that part of the development, I think from a safety standpoint is critical. Having the intersection of Valley and Morgan P is a Waukesha County initiative, and I think that's important from a safety standpoint. We remove the RML, and the developer looks at how to capitalize on his investment to 51 homes. They can get small in lot size. It's a balance, right, in regards to what goes into our community at what price point. The larger the property, generally the more expensive that property is going to be, which is why we see property sizes, the lot size is kind of shrinking as development cost goes up. Try to strike a balance of something that's somewhat affordable to some segment of our community. You make the lot sizes bigger, you're going to drive up the home costs. That is going to be a result of that policy. And right now, we're not talking about lot sizes. We're not talking about the connectivity of Woodside Drive. We're talking about the zoning. And I would support the rezoning of this parcel with the removal of the RML, and continue to encourage our city planner to work with the developer to see what this could look like without Woodside Drive going through, in regards to what that can do to accommodate the additional capacity for that property, for that 51, removing the RML. I think it helps to maintain the existing development in that area as more rural, with the lot size that would be required in order to get that 51 here. There's some compromise there. So I think that strikes a balance. And hopefully this some nice quality development within that part of our community. Knowing that it's at the edge of our community and has more of a rural feel, I think the developer and the experienced planning commission understands that, and add to that, the street lighting and all of that, I think are things that we need to remain aware of as this is going through the process. And that was another thing that was talked about during planning commission. I'm really happy to see the number of people who took their time to come back here to voice their concerns. Those concerns are heard by the committees, the commissions that we talk in front of, as well as this body. I'm really proud of this body and how it responds to the input from the community. And hopefully we move down the road that strikes the balance between development, property right owners, the rights of the property owner, and the expectations of the community and strong. So I would move to move this forward, as presented, with the exception of the RML.
Lori, I'd like to just connect with you. Do we have a developer on the line? I heard a funky noise coming from the computer.
Just ask if Corey wants to make a
Okay, Mr. O'Donnell, would you like to make a statement at this time?
Yes. Good evening. I have listened to the comments this evening, and I do have a couple of things as it relates to development.
Could you speak up just a little bit louder, please?
Certainly. I'd like to discuss a little bit as it relates to the house size and the lot size in the community. We're averaging about 12,175 square feet for the lot in Morgan Station. And committed to the size of the home being similar to what was actually recorded for the third phase of Hickory Wood Farms in 2017. Their minimums are 1,600 square foot ranches and 1,900 square foot two-stories. And, we took a look at the product that we currently are building in Oconomowoc, and we're actually averaging almost 1,800 square foot ranges and 2,100 square foot two-stories. So we think the actual size of the home that we're going to be building here is very fair in comparison to the last phase of what was constructed in Hickorywood. And as far as the lot size, we definitely are seeing that the market is being driven a little bit with a little smaller lot sizes, but where we have done past. I think most of the lot sizes in some of the other communities in Oconomowoc have been about 10,000 to 11,000 square foot. Here we're about 12,175 square foot, so we're a little larger. And yes, it is a little smaller than what's in Hickorywood. But the home size itself that's being constructed is very similar, and price points we're envisioning being very similar as well. As it relates to the multifamily, we had a deferred special assessment on this parcel, and it was based on 51 units, and that's how the deferred special was calculated. And I understand that potentially we could move forward with all SR zoning over the entire site and have 47 lots in the community, just as you see in the concept plan. So instead of going to duplex on those 4 lots, 11, 12, 13, 14, we could stick to SR zoning there and just go single family. So, the vision there still is going to be 47 lots as designed. We just, we don't have to have an RML zoning there. We can go straight up SR and have it all single family. We would not object to that.
Jason? Alderman Zapple may have a question for you. One moment.
Sure. Corey, thank you for your feedback in regards to that. I would be hoping, this is something that wouldn't be discussed tonight, but the issue in regards to the sidewalk, heard a lot of concerns in regards to that, not only tonight, but I've heard from a lot of my constituents in regards to that as well. The tree lines and the lighting, I hope that you'd be willing to work with us in regards to that.
Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, thank you. Jason, quick question. Corey, thank you for those comments. That makes sense. We appreciate your willingness to compromise on the RML. If he only does 47 instead of the 51, does that mean we get paid a little bit less back on our special assessment then? We still get the full amount?
No, we get the full amount. If they build one house, or if they build 40, or they build 51. It's just the entire amount is due.
That's another big deal why this is still open. What are, out of curiosity, do you know what the Hickorywood average lot sizes are?
There's 3 different phases, and the final phase of the lots was something that came through when I was here as the planner, and those are much smaller than phase 1 and 2. Those lots, range, I would say, from 11,500 up to maybe 16,000 in that final phase. So, with the majority of it being 12 to 14,000. But that's just, I haven't seen that plat in some time.
Yeah, no, that's.
It's interesting as you go through that. I've done the property well before there was a single house on there. I've walked that whole property. Beautiful piece of property. it's interesting how those developments proceeded. They're all a little bit different. And what's interesting is driving through them in the evening. I have gone down to the end of Woodside and looked at that area. I did see a resident here sitting at his desk. It looked like in the corner. It looked like a beautiful spot. But when we look at these things, we have to really realize what the need is for the city as well. And it's a double-edged sword. We can't have all high-end development. We have to have a mix of different types of development. I think pretty much anybody in this room would just love to keep it undeveloped. Yet, this is, I think, a fair and reasonable request. What we want to do is try to make it the best development we can. And there's still a lot of phases to go through that. As Alderman Kavieski mentioned, this is about the zoning. And there's still a lot of things that hoops that have to go through until we have a final product. So I think I echo that same component. Any other comments for our applicant or for Jason for the council?
Just one last
Alderman
general.
Rosen?
Yeah, just one last general. And I wouldn't say that this is low quality at all. I think what Corey said, I think what other aldermen have said is the slightly smaller lots are different. I mean, where I live, the lots are huge, and that's just not what people are buying right now. Newman's development right behind me, where they also connected the roads, and people complained about that until roads are connected. I think it creates a great connectivity and community and neighborhood feeling. But they're selling small lots there and small houses, and they're still going for 450, 500 grand a pop. They're not low income. They're not cheap. And they don't even have finished basements. So they're not real wood.
You go through Hickory Wood 1 and Hickory Wood 2. There's a very different feel, and there's a lot of different amenities. And that's part of the development. What I really like is that people are still trying to keep that rural atmosphere. And I think we as a council should try to do our best in the future to try to meet those needs for the community. Alderman Kavieski.
I'd like to make a motion to amend for the removal of the RML from the ordinance.
Second.
Any further discussion? There's no motion on the table first, so we first have to address the initial.
I'll withdraw my second then.
Okay. So we could entertain a motion on the current.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No, and then we'll amend, right?
I don't think you need to amend. I think you can just move to rezone to one district.
Then I would, if all motions have been withdrawn, I'll make that assumption. Do I have a motion per recommendation of legal counsel?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance as single
Suburban
residential
Only.
I'm going to second that.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to add something to the motion. Kevin, we should waive our second reading as well. As part of your motion, I think you should add waiving and second.
Would you like to restate your motion?
To waive second reading.
Second. Second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Nay.
Alderman Rosen.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Thank you all, and thank you for our guests in the audience. You're welcome to stay for more if you'd like. We'll move on now to some new business. Consider an act on resolution 20-R2902 approving the 2021 Lake Country Municipal Budget. Chief Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor. So everybody had in their packet a letter from the Lake Country Municipal Court from Don Weimer. We went through the budget for the 2020 and 2021 court, and we're going to have a shortfall this year. It was projected in the memo that to be about $57,000. Good news is that has turned around for us, so we're probably only projecting about a $30,000 to $35,000 under budget that we'll have to make up. With that as well, some other costs for 2021, our health insurance increased $9,000 for Lake Country Municipal Court, and they will be using some of the reserve funds to make up that difference, so it doesn't get passed along anymore. Answer any questions?
Entertain a motion at this time.
I was just gonna ask you a question. What's the rest of the stipend? It's all $1,500 stipend. Could you just explain what that's about?
Sure. At the operations committee, there was a debate about giving raises out to the staff. The committee decided that they were not going to give raises out. And what they decided to do was hand out $1,500 split between the 4 different employees. So a full-time employee gets a little bit more than a part-time employee. So it's a one-time.
As far as the health insurance, or the insurance is terrible. Go out for a quote or anything, got any bids or looked around or anything along those lines, you just accepted it or not?
That's the state insurance plan that they go through. So those are the set rates for the court. So we don't, that's just, it's a standard state plan. Every time other communities have gone out and looked, they cannot beat the state plan at any time. So that's what they have had. So I can certainly go back to them and propose looking at that in the future.
Is the state plan self-funded or?
I believe it's partially funded. Laura, you know? Don't know. I believe it's partially.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The important thing with the state fund is that they put a bid in.
Correct. Yeah, that's why it's always cheaper, because they're bidding as a large group. Whereas if the court went out, they only have, the 4 employees, 2 full-time, part-time judge and 2 part-timers. So, great. So.
You don't put this budget together.
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
So just a general comment for you to take, Judge Kay or whoever put it together. I don't like the way the budget looks. I don't understand why it's got these weird, 100%. It should just show a percentage decrease. 120, you start looking at it. So I think they should try to make the budget look a little bit more like our city budget.
Okay.
That's my only comment.
Okay.
I know you didn't do it, so just take that on.
Absolutely. Sure.
Any further comments? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Move on to staff reports. We have one staff report. Chief Bowen is going to give us a little update. I thought it was important to have you understand where we are in vaccine, what's going on in the community. Chief Bowen and Chief Pfister, thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor. The mayor asked, just as the developments with COVID continue, and there's a lot of news media currently occurring with the vaccine becoming closer to a reality, that we provide you with a brief update. So COVID is still around. At a local level, I will say our fire district is seeing more and more calls for service. Our call volume is up about 30%, and a lot of that is related to COVID tech cases. Same thing. We are seeing more of that, as well as the hospitals. But something that's consuming a lot of our time, because unfortunately we can't control that call volume right now, is the vaccine. Waukesha County Fire Chiefs, along with Waukesha County Public Health, have both applied to be vaccinators and basically set up a vaccination type clinic system. About 1.5 years ago, we talked to you about the closed pod system, that if there was like an anthrax poisoning or some sort of another attack, that we could provide vaccines or antidotes to not only our employees, but the general public. So we have applied. We're waiting for that review of the state. Obviously, this is a statewide process, and they're going through the different tiers. Up until Friday, the state hadn't yet decided what the definition of a 1A versus a 1B versus a 2 is. They are going through the approval processes to determine what groups and what categories of citizens as well as employees fall into each category. And based on that, the vaccine will become available. The Pfizer vaccine is being delivered to Wisconsin currently because they do have approval. About 50,000 doses arriving this week. Statewide, though, there's over 400,000 healthcare workers alone, not taking into account skilled nursing, folks over the age of 65, and other essential workers. So we anticipate seeing a trickle effect of the vaccine coming in. This initial dose is going to be less than 10% of that initial 1A group. So we're monitoring that. We're preparing for that to provide the vaccines to our staff, our other public safety partners, other essential workers, and then we do have the ability to scale up or down these vaccination type clinics. I do want to thank Chief Pfister and Mark Fry. Like I said, we've been talking about the closed pod program, and the three of us met, discussed how we were going to provide those vaccines when they come available, and we all work together to kind of get everything prepared so we can phase things up or down. With regards to storage and hubs of where things are being located, at a statewide level, none of that's being announced, and yet at a local level, we're not allowed to announce any of that either. All the vaccines are being transported with a state patrol escort for security purposes as well. So that's as much as I can kind of share. Besides that, we are all working together in preparation to scale things up and down as necessary.
Just want to compliment you. I've seen the collaboration. And for council in there too, we've invited, and this has been going on for quite a while, we've been invited by Chief Bowen, to our department head in meetings. And he's been an active participant and really getting engaged. It's really a fun thing to watch from a distance. And my hats off to both of you gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further comments before they step away? Alderman Spiegelberg.
So this vaccination is a two-step process. How far from the first vaccination to the second are they suggesting?
So it depends which one, whether you get the Pfizer or the Moderna. Dr. Katie, our medical director, who has been here before this council, has reviewed them. He feels that the vaccines are safe. He's recommending that our staff receive them if we're given the option. He's not mandating it at this time. It's anywhere between 14 and 21 days. And that is one thing that we also have been assured is when we receive our shipment, our secondary shipment will automatically be allocated, so we don't have to self-store that secondary shipment. Because that was a question out there is when you receive 1,000 vaccines, do you have to hold 500 back or not? The CDC has required that secondary shipment is already pre-held back and kept at the appropriate temperatures for that 14 to 21 day period.
The initial dose and the booster, very time sensitive, and very, very important that those are. So that's great.
So I heard you say Dr. Katie was not looking at making the vaccine mandatory at this time. That's something the city's going to need to look at in terms of establishing a policy of what we expect in terms of first responders, whether they need to be taking the vaccine or we're making a policy that says, no, we don't want to make it mandatory, we want to make it, voluntary. Is that something this body needs to look at? Or is that something the medical director has the authority to do and we're comfortable?
It's something we're working with our city administrator and legal counsel on. There's a lot of confusion on that topic. And I don't have an answer for you now. But as soon as we have something and we can get that again out to the council and figure out where we are in that position. So at this stage, for the city, there are no mandatory. Okay, great. Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much. Let's move on. I don't believe we have any other staff reports. Are there any that I'm aware of? Okay. Let's move on to reports and comments from the alderman. Alderman Zapfel, I think you have your hand up first.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank all the residents that came and participated tonight. We appreciate it. Also appreciate the residents who were unable to attend that reached out. I'm always open 24/7. Feel free to email me, call me, whatever. I hope this participation is reported both by Evan and Alex in the newspaper. I think this is the largest attended meeting since I've been sworn in this past April. Gave me a somewhat flashback from when Alderman Mulder, Alderman Shellpepper, and Mayor Magnus and I were sitting in the crowd during the stadium discussion. So excited to see the participation by our community. I hope we can see more of that in the future. Again, thank you to the staff for all of your help with everything the past couple months as I've been on council here. I really, really appreciate it. I want to thank the chiefs for the COVID report. It's like the mayor has telepathic powers or something. I wrote that down. Just kind of asking for an update at some point. Really appreciate that. I don't know if we can get a little blurb in the administrator report every week. That'd be appreciated if possible as well. I also appreciate all the neighbors in our community who have set up Christmas lights. I've gone out. I noticed a lot of the tree lots and some of the places where you cut trees, you're not able to get trees anymore. My family has gone out a couple nights in our community, taken a drive in the neighborhoods and really enjoyed looking at the Christmas lights. It's not going to be the same as every Christmas. Being able to spend time with my family, it's really hard. My parents, laws, we're not going to be able to spend time because I'm looking out for their health and their wellness. So we're trying to bring cheer to our younger ones right now. So I just want to thank our community for coming together in regards to that. I want to say a Merry Christmas, Happy Festivus, Happy Holidays, whatever holiday you may celebrate to everyone on the council here. And I'll encourage everyone, if you haven't already, please make a donation to the food drive that's being held by Dispatch, either monetary or food. And I appreciate the work that Dispatch is doing.
Alderman Ellis.
Yes, I think that this new and I think that there is, however, people who look out there that we are not taking into consideration at this time for benefit to look into doing something for them, and that is the debt. Because at the end of the day, I know for a fact that there are some individuals who would really like to participate, but the problem is they can't hear us. So if, I have some ideas in which, go ahead and discuss, but I think it's tremendously important that we begin the process. If we are going to do this, to bring them in so that they can also have their voice.
Well, thank you. And Matt, if you can reach out to Alderman Ellis and work on that. Thank you. Alderman Kavieski.
Yeah, 3-minute clock. As this is the last meeting of 2020, thank everybody for all of their hard work. Very challenging year. Hopefully, everyone here, staff, council, and our community can look forward to a better 2021. A couple of things, and I'd also like to thank the fire district. We're going to be visiting senior homes next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. There'll be Santa right along for that, and I'm collecting cookies and Christmas cards to get to those senior homes as kind of a piggyback to complete the holiday cheer from Thanksgiving, where we deliver over 100 pies. Thanks. So if you're here in Minnesota, if you'd like to contribute some Christmas cards or some cookies, drop them off at my house, get some stuff on Facebook. It's part of what really drives this community is coming together for gathering food to the food bank, supporting one another, neighbors, new and old, and it's incredible to see. And I know for a fact that will continue on 2021. And
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Just want to remind everyone that we are rounding the bend with Build a Park at 517, but there's still a ways to go. So make sure you continue to encourage people to give to that. And I've also understood from the project that if you're able to give by the end of the calendar year or early into January from a planning standpoint, that works better for the project. I'd love to wish everyone a blessed Christmas and holiday season, whatever that might look like this year.
Any further comments from Alderman Rosen?
Yeah, just a real quick one. Last meeting of the year, Merry Christmas. Christmas is about hope, joy, love, and peace. But it's also about the birth of our Lord Jesus. That was what Christmas has always been about. I just encourage people to enjoy their time with family, love, and friends. So Merry Christmas to all that are watching.
No further, we'll move on to reports and comments from the mayor. Very simply, everybody, have a Merry Christmas and have a great holiday, and my best to all of you. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Ross. And thank you all who are in virtual